All right, so here we are. We are on Jody's trail. Pretty cool. There it is. Did you guys see it? A gopher. Tortoise, that is. That's what they're talking about in the book when they talk about the traveling folks that were like gypsies. Now I'm forgetting what they called them in the story. But that's what the people that were traveling around through the forest were hunting. And in the book they just call them gophers, but it's gopher tortoises, which are now mostly due to population, mostly due to habitat decline and housing plans and development. They're threatened, not endangered yet, but they're protected in the state, or possibly federally. Still a fair number around where I live, but not as many as there should be. They're pretty cool. They get surprisingly big. They live just on land in little burrows, and in this scrub, it's a big keystone species. A lot of stuff depends on them to survive. There's just not much out here, and besides leaf litter and palmettos and all the scrubby brush, rattlesnakes, rodents, and a lot of different creatures use the gopher tortoise's burrows for overwintering and just protection from the elements. So it's a cool species that a lot of other animals depend on. Oh, well, here's an interesting one. A sinkhole. Wow. In the middle of right off the trail. How cool is that? A little bit scary. We're not too far. Silver Glen Springs is just a ways that way, maybe a mile. And there's water running through under the limestone down below the surface sand. And so there's a leak or some sort of a crack that's running down into the limestone. And so rainwater and the water passing by underground has eroded, and there's a leak in the ceiling of the underground river. And so it's pulling the surface down in. Now what's kind of interesting is you can see sand piled up on the edges. So people have been in here doing something, digging, there's footprints. So people might have gotten the idea to start excavating, looking for historical artifacts. There's a really interesting pink layer there. I'm not sure what that means, but it is illegal to remove artifacts from public land. There could be Indian artifacts, all sorts of interesting things here. Kind of cool. Another neat thing. I'm a little bit too scared to step down in there. Could always collapse. I'm now on Jody's Trace Trail, and it's amazing rattlesnake habitat. So I'm keeping my eyes peeled. It would be super cool if I scrounged up a rattlesnake to show you guys as well. If I don't, I'll have to go find some footage from a year or two back when I last found one in this area. But it's beautiful here. You can still see all the signs. There's recent fire here, which happens naturally fairly often, but in the national forest they've started to manage and do controlled burns. I'm not 100% sure this was controlled, because a year or two back there was a closure listed due to wildfire, so this could have been a natural one. But it happens yearly all over the place and clears everything out. That's why all the palmettos are only about waist high instead of 6, 7, or 8 feet tall. So it really lets you see things, kind of clears stuff out and allows new growth in the forests. It's also really good for the pine trees. A little bit of fire on the bark doesn't do anything to them, and I think it encourages growth. cactus isn't really something you think about here in Florida, but we do have a nice little scattering of them here and there. I always like to see them. My first reaction is to always get annoyed when I find litter, but this old glass can tell you a thing or two. You don't find glass like this anymore, that thick and that color. I don't know enough to tell you what exactly this was. Looks like the big 3 or 5 gallon jugs used for making wine or something. Maybe bootleggers back in the day, who knows. Kind of cool. Just laid out here, sitting on top of the sand, washed clean with every rain. This is just a little ways off the trail, near the cattle trough.
Okay, so I sent the drone up here to give you guys a good view to see the lay of the land. Just going to pan up and spin around a little bit, and shortly you're going to see Lake George come into view. And you can't see the whole lake, but we'll see the shore, and you'll notice pretty much the point where the lake is the closest to me, just about right now, is approximately where Silver Glen Springs is.
All right, I made it. The sinkhole. It's huge. Wow. I had no idea it was this big. Look at that. So this is where Jody found flag. Really cool for as flat as this whole area is. Just come across a big sinkhole. So cool. I'm gonna go to the bottom. It smells funny. There's lots of bird poop. Some buzzards or turkeys must roost up there in that tree. Look at that. It's dry, but it's a little bit greener down here. There's still just a little bit of moisture. Boy, I'd love to find a critter down here. Or a creature, I should say. Look at this cactus. Wow. I've never seen one so big in anywhere in Florida. That's amazing. So cool. I had no idea this was here. I have no clue what this is. Very interesting, but it looks like maybe an old bag of concrete. Wow. I don't know what explains the shape. Whoa, look. It is. Looks like an old, could have been burlap, some sort of cloth bag with cement. Who knows how old it is? How cool. But to get all the way down here, that is amazing. Wow. Piece of history. this. I just wonder, could that have maybe been the steps? The way I came down, they'd built a retaining wall, but, oh, that's what the cement's from. There's another. They're all over. Okay. Wow. Didn't realize those on the way down. They built that wall to prevent erosion. So it's hard to say. That could have been the way Jody came down every day to get water, or it could have been these natural steps. It really makes you wonder. I like to think it was these natural ones here. They probably built their own steps back in the day, if they were doing it every day. But it's hard to say. Look at that. Somebody made a rope swing. This is probably a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't remember the last time I was on a swing. It's been too long.
So it was definitely a bummer to see the sinkhole was totally dry. I knew that going into it, but it's a shame to see something like that dry up and change. But that's definitely the way of Florida, with the way that our soil is and the underground terrain with the lime rock and all these underwater rivers and stuff changes and erosion happens, and so things flood and then things drain. With Silver Glen Springs being so close, who knows what water was diverted or changed throughout the years. Still super cool, but would have been really cool to see some water down there.
This is just a stone's throw from the sinkhole is the Patrick Smith home site, and it is not easy to see. Florida takes over quickly when you abandon something, and so somewhere around here is supposed to be the homestead. There's a couple gaps in the trees, some clearings that could be possible location, but some other people have also reported it's hard to find any I guess there's no ruins or foundation left. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to something more interesting. Next up, I'm going to try to get to the cemetery and then the Long family homestead. And then I'm going to book it back to the truck.
Now, something you might not have caught in the book was that they refer to this area as Pat's Island, and it's a little bit misleading, but here in Florida, an island is just a slightly higher bit of ground. There's so much swamp and marshland, lowlands, that even though there's not actually water surrounding an area, they'll call a slightly higher, drier area of ground an island. And they named this place after Patrick Smith, who was a guy that settled way back in the 1840s and was a postmaster here. Also, I do have to admit, in all the excitement of hiking and exploring, I started to get a little bit confused between the actual historical characters and just fictional characters from the book, and confusing the Foresters with the Long family name and stuff. This cemetery is from the Reuben Long family, and they are actual historical figures that settled in the area, and possibly the Forester family was based on them, but they made their living from farming, running woods cattle and hogs, hunting, fishing, making moonshine whiskey, and trading with boat travel that went up and down the St. Johns River. And Lake George that you saw earlier is just a portion of that river.
Gopher. They're quick. He's heading right to his burrow. I think we're getting close. The only thing I can't help but wonder about are the rough and rowdy foresters. I don't know. I can't remember between fact and fiction. I don't know if the foresters were based upon the folks that lived out here in the national forest, or if they were actually a historical family. I'm thinking they might have been made up, but it was hard not to kind of wish you knew the foresters as friends, and it'd be cool to see something out here related to them, since they played such a big part in the story. But amazing that this is still all charred from the fire. It must have been a pretty big one.
This part ended up being a little bit underwhelming, but this is the Long family's homestead, and all that's left is just the outline here of their cistern where they'd collect water. They put a little fence around it there, I guess, to keep people out of it. But I wasn't able to see any foundation or the actual remnants of any houses.
I'm burning up. I forgot to bring my change of clothes, so I'm in here in jeans and a long sleeve shirt. Came here straight from church, and I left my shorts and t-shirt sitting by the front door. And I didn't bring any water. It's in the truck. So I think that's it. I might roll some more footage, have some other clips, but that's it for the hiking anyway, unless I see something cool on the way out.
So I wanted to throw in some extra clips here of some things that jumped out to me in the book. A few things really kind of tickled my funny bone, and I had some footage that was related, so I wanted to show you guys here in a spring. Not Silver Glen, but actually Alexander Springs, which is also in Ocala National Forest. There's some beautiful water here, but I just wanted to get a little bit of footage of the bluegill and sunfish. In the book, Jody's mom at one point asks Penny and Jody to go fishing and bring her back a little bream. And I thought that was really funny how she pronounced it. And down south here, they call panfish brem. And I grew up just calling them bluegill or sunfish or panfish in general. And so I thought that was really funny for the accent. This next clip here is from a short distance away, kayaking down Juniper Run. And this is where at one point during the story they chase old Slewfoot, and he crosses, and I think they might have lost him at this point. Now my memory is getting a little bit foggy, but it was really cool when I was reading the book. This was the first time that I actually realized the location and connected it to an actual place that I'd been. When the book said that they had chased the bear and he crossed Juniper Run, I instantly remembered that that's that place that I went kayaking not too long ago. So that was kind of cool. I saw a couple nice big Florida gar here a little bit further downstream. Now I know the video's getting long, so I gotta be quick, but I couldn't end before I showed you a little clip of Silver Glen Springs after talking about it. These are striped bass that come into the spring to escape the warm temperatures during the summer. So those cool spring water at 74 degrees year-round keeps these bass, even though they're not native to the area. One other thing, at one point Jody gets in trouble for daydreaming. He was wasting a bunch of time building a little whirlybird paddle wheel they mentioned it was down in the water by some spring boils in the sand. These are mesmerizing little underwater volcanoes of sand that I could just watch all day. So it's no wonder Jody was daydreaming and playing in those as a kid. I would still do that as an adult. I think I found Slewfoot's great-great-great-great-grandson.
Whew. I should know better. Home stretch though. They didn't bring any water. Knew that was a mistake. Left it in the truck, so I didn't want to carry the weight. But I'm a little past 5 miles here, about 80 degrees, and the jeans aren't helping. I'm parched. My mouth's so dry. But I think I see the end of the trail. So that was it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know I really liked being able to see the physical location after reading that story more than once, but it's been a long time. Super cool, small world that I'd move across the country and end up not too far from something like this. Just kind of cool.